Inderjit is a former MP from the People's Action Party in Singapore, where he served from 1996 to 2015. Inderjit has extensive experience as an entrepreneur and as a policy maker, helping create a good ecosystem through policy changes and in educating the next generation of entrepreneurs. He currently serves as the CEO and founder of Solstar International and CEO of TriStar Electronics. He is currently a board member of Nanyang Technical University and chairman of the board of Intuitive, the innovation company of NTU.
Thanks. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, YSPN, for inviting me here today. I almost missed the event because I started lecturing at the university at a lecture today. I managed to postpone by about a week, so I'm very happy to be here. And so far, the quality of the discussions in the morning and this afternoon has been excellent. And congratulations, YSPN. It's really a great job, and I think sets a very high standard for anyone else who wants to organize an event like that. I learned a lot. So my session is on politics, and so the question is, how do you link the Sikh values with politics? Can you do that? When I first got elected in 1996, the first conference I attended here, and I was talking about it at lunchtime, was in Victoria, in the parliament in Victoria. And the discussion by the MPs, local MPs here, was about, among all the professions, how politicians are ranked last. And I was discussing with my colleague from New Zealand just now, and he was saying that politicians are just one rank above prostitutes in New Zealand. So the Speaker of the Victoria Parliament saw me sitting with a turban, and he said, we have a friend from Singapore here, and I was not scheduled to speak actually. And so he said, can you share with us how is it in Singapore? So I had to miss my lunch because I had to prepare my speech. And so I started by telling him that among professions, politicians are ranked number one in Singapore. And I think, we know the reasons why. So I hope that, and I will try to explain to you how my Sikhi values help me in this area too. Now, we are a minority of minorities anywhere in the world that we go. In India, we are a minority of a minority. In Singapore, we are a minority. Indians are a minority, and we are a minority in the Indian community. In Australia, you feel the same way. So we are a minority of minorities. How have we done so far throughout these many years? And I think the good news is that if we look around the world, including here in Australia, I think the answer is that despite us being a minority of minorities, the Sikh community has done very well everywhere that we have went. And I think if you start with the best example, Dr. Manmohan Singh, Prime Minister of India, and Dr. Narendra Singh Kapani, inventor of the fiber optics, one of our very successful entrepreneurs. Davinder Singh, who was my parliamentary colleague when I was in parliament, best lawyer in Southeast Asia. And we've got Rupi Kaur, one of the best-selling authors of her books. Sanatam Kaur, who's going to perform at the Grammys this year. Waris Ahluwalia, and many more. In politics, we heard this morning that in Canada, we've got 4 Sikhs in cabinet. I mean, that is great achievement. Even India could not have 4, and that's where we should have 4, right? But no. And we have got a turban MP in New Zealand. In Singapore, at one time, there were 3 of us. Davinder, who's a lawyer, myself, and both of us were elected, and there was another lady, Inderjit Singh, she's a surgeon, and she was a nominated MP. And today, there's still one more member of parliament in Singapore, and that is Pritam Singh, and he's from the opposition, not from the ruling party, but he's the leader of the main opposition party in Singapore. And he's still in parliament, and we wish him well, although, I'm going to campaign for my party, but, I wish him well. So, when I was, and I'll explain a bit of my experience. When I was being put up as a potential candidate for the 1996 election in Singapore, Davinder was already in parliament. And we were attending a Deepavali function, and the Indian Muslim community cornered our Prime Minister, Goh Chok Tong. I was with him going around. And they say, Prime Minister, we don't have an Indian Muslim in parliament. Can you put an Indian Muslim in there? That was before the elections were announced. And the Prime Minister told them, no, we don't choose people by representation. He said, if you do that, we only need half a Sikh in parliament, but I'm going to have 2. And we choose them based on their capability. There are only 12,000 Sikhs in Singapore, not 150,000 like what you have down here. It's a very small community, but I think, in Singapore, over the years, not just politicians, but we have got many very successful leaders in various fields, whether they were in the military or whether they were in the police force, in the professions, and so on. So, we able to succeed despite being such a small community, and why was that possible? So maybe a bit of my background, and I'll try to link back to how as a Sikh person who practice Sikhi, I managed to do politics without having to compromise my value system. I did 20 years. I did 4 terms. I almost got into the 5th term, but I refused, and because I think I had done my service, and I explain what I mean by that in a while. But my voter base was 80% Chinese. I did not get voted in a place where I had majority Sikhs. Most of my voters were Chinese. I maybe had something percent Sikhs, and then I had Indians and I had Malays. But I managed to get their trust and their support and win 4 elections, and I continued to serve. And I was actually serving together with our Prime Minister. I was in the same team as a Prime Minister in Ang Mo Kio GRC. Now, the core message that I want to deliver to our young who are sitting down here is that each one of us who has the capacity, and each one of us who's got the capability, we need to be more engaged in the society that we live in, no matter where, in which part of the world we are. Not just serve your own community, but serve the society at large. And I think that is a universal value that we learn from Guru Nanak and all our gurus, that we should carry to any community that we go. And this is how we must be viewed, not just among ourselves, but the rest of people in the society. In my case, in Singapore, we are multiracial. Majority, 75% are Chinese, and other races, we are very small. But they still have seen us as very valuable citizens who are able to contribute and continue to look out for us to support them. So the question is, can Sikhs, a distinct community that practices, our core values, who look very different, and we heard many examples of, even though how different we look, they have succeeded in their careers, in entrepreneurship, in the professions, and so on. So can we practice Sikhi? Can our values be translated into politics, and yet for us to be successful? And most importantly for us is being so small around the world, about maybe 30 million of us, in such a small, is that how can we do our part individually to get the respect of everyone else, so that we can practice our religion and we can practice our practices, and our children will have a great future. It becomes our responsibility to project that kind of image, so that the next generations will also have an easier time than our previous generation, who had a very tough time integrating into the places that we get into. Now, so let me share the 5 areas of politics, of Sikhi, and then relate them to politics and how I practice them in Singapore, because that's where I have the experience. And I looked at politics in Singapore as a national service rather than as a career. And before I entered into politics, I actually was already a student leader. I was a community leader. I had served my community as a volunteer, my residents in my area. And so when the opportunity to get into parliament came about, which was not something that I asked for, by the way, I was asked to come into politics. And I saw it as an opportunity to do a lot more than what I could do as a community leader. That if I entered parliament, I could do a lot more for Singaporeans. I could do a lot more for the Sikh community. And so when I was invited, I took it as an opportunity to do a national service at a bigger level, and so I chose it. So let me relate to the 5 areas. First, courage, Sava Laksa Ekalarang. Second, the spirit of Tadrikala, a positive attitude, never say die. And we heard just now, we are going to face problem always. And therefore, I personally believe, and I'm an entrepreneur more than I'm a politician actually, is that there's no problem that cannot be solved. Every problem that we face in life can be solved, just that, the solutions may not be what you thought, but just go and solve the problem. Seva, servant leader, we heard about that today, and therefore politics is a natural extension of seva, another form of seva, not just doing in Gurdwara, a public service. Duty, all of us have a duty to represent the community in policy making, and finally, project the community as a responsible citizen of the country. So Sikhs as responsible citizens of Singapore, of Australia, of wherever that we live in. As my fellow panelists will share with you, standing for election is not an easy task. I had to convince 80% of Chinese who did not know me before I entered into politics to vote for me. That requires a lot of courage. And enter into parliament, first you have to win the elections. To win the elections, you really have to promise a lot of things. And when you promise these things, you have to deliver. You must have the confidence and the courage to announce and what you want to do, and then later on to work hard to go and deliver those things that you want to do. And then, of course, these days is a lot more tougher than when I started social media. There's going to be a lot of fake news. Whatever you say or do, people will amplify it, make it sound very bad, and therefore it will discourage you. You must have the courage to go beyond what you read on the social media, believe in yourself, and that will help you succeed. So the first that I am willing to fight a big battle, and I'm confident to win. So that's courage. Second part about courage is when I entered parliament was my willingness to stand up and fight for the issues that I believed in. Now, I came from the ruling party. The ruling party had always had the absolute majority. In fact, for our first 30 years, it was 100% seats were for ruling party. We had no opposition seats at all. By the time I came into parliament, there were 2 elected single-seat opposition members, and then the rest of us were, elected from the ruling party side. So therefore, opposition could not do an effective job in representing the people. So I played the role of an opposition, and I was viewed as a tougher opposition than the real opposition in parliament. So which means I had to stand up and fight and on many issues that I believe in. And that brings me to the second value, and that is the spirit of Chadrikala. That there's no problem that cannot be solved. So many a times I stood up and I battled many of the heavyweight ministers, and also Prime Minister, who was my colleague because I'm on the same team as him, but also he was a Prime Minister, and I fought them on many issues that I believed in. For example, we had a system of early streaming in primary schools. At the age of 9, they start streaming children into different streams according to how they did in their examination in primary 3. That determined the rest of their life, whether they go to a slower stream or a faster stream. But we know children develop at different phases. So I spent almost about 15 years battling the government on this, and every time when I battled the ministers, I of course got bruised. They used to ridicule me and did a lot of things, but I did not give up. The spirit of Chadrikala. Some years later, they changed, and they finally had to change. So don't give up. Second example was on the economic growth policy of Singapore. I had devised a term that's called growth at all cost policy in Singapore, which I thought was very damaging because the government was just growing the economy, leaving people behind. I believed in an inclusive growth strategy. Similarly, when I talked about this, the reply from the finance minister, first the prime minister, and then Tharman, who was the next finance minister, was there's no such thing we can't control. Growth has to grow on their own. After 2011 election, when they got beaten quite badly at the elections, they came back, and the next budget speech said, yes, from now onwards, we're going to focus on inclusive growth economic strategy. So it took me about 10 over years to fight this battle. Never give up, Chadrikala. The third value, seva, servant leader, and therefore politics is a natural extension of policy. Now, why has YSPN organized this conference? This is a seva to the youth and the Sikhs in Australia. And we heard this morning many times. Seva is not just doing the seva in the Gurdwaras. We can serve the community in many ways. And our gurus taught us not to just serve the community, but society, humanity at large. So each one of us should contribute in whichever way we can. As I mentioned before, I started as politics. I was serving as a community leader, and then in '96 I got into parliament, and I saw it as an opportunity to serve our community at a wider level, and do a lot more things that I believe that needed to be done for our citizens. So what I did for Sikh community at that time was which then brings me to the fourth is duty, is that Punjabi, if you see what's happening in Singapore today, is recognized as an official mother tongue language. When I was growing up, I was forced to learn either Chinese, Tamil, or Malay. We have to learn, English is our main language, and we have to learn the mother tongue, but the government never recognized this for many years. About 20 years ago, our community leaders managed to get some recognition, but no funding from government. And so the government actually, still did not fully believe in it. So this is one thing that I spent a lot of time, again, battling inside and outside Parliament. Finally, in 2007, we got the approval to be fully recognized and to be fully funded by the government. So this is a duty that I thought, I had to do. Now, we grapple with... and therefore, that if you have the capacity and capability, please come forward and do this, and you can achieve some of these things. After September 11, our Sikh community faced big problems because of how we look. And one of the big issues that appeared in Singapore was carrying of kirpan who were carrying around. Our police officers stopped people who were carrying kirpan. And so because people did not understand what it means for us. So because of, I was there, I managed to organize a meeting of our community leaders, all the security agencies in Singapore, and we got the approval from the government to carry based on some specification. And finally, we have 7 gurdwaras in Singapore. We actually, for 12,000 Singaporeans, that's 6, there's too many. But I managed to battle the government to get one more piece of land. In the western part of Singapore, that is currently lacking. But we had something else in mind as community leaders. I spent a lot of time with our community. Is that we want to do more things than just a Gurdwara. We need to build a Sikhi hub, welfare. There are about 100 old folks that are living in different old folks homes in Singapore. Some in the Muslim old folks home, some in the Christian old folks home, and some in the Buddhist old folks home. If we can create one like that in a place where we also have a Gurdwara, we have langar, we can do a lot. Youth camps, youth hub, sports hub, and so the good news is the government is going to allocate us this land very soon. It is bigger than any piece of land that community currently owns in Singapore. So we will start that project very soon. Mel and I are working on this project. It will take us a few years, but we're going to build this. So I think these are examples of what we can do, as a duty to come forward in any level of policy making that you can. Because if I was not there, if Davinder was not there, the government would not know who we are. 12,000. I hear many times, even the Indian community is about 10%. The politicians will tell you the Indian vote is not important to us. So why would they care? And they will not be bothered to get into the depth of our issues. So it's really up to us to surface some of these things if we really want to solve those problems that we face, and then those things that we want to do. And finally, my fifth value is projecting Sikhs and the Sikh community as a responsible citizen wherever we live. So while I took the opportunity to help our Sikh community to do many things that I could, I wish I could do more, but our seva is what is predetermined, so I did what I could. But I think I also wanted to do more for the Singapore society at large, positively contribute to nation building, improving the life of Singaporeans in general, improving the lives of my residents and my voters. And I was concerned with the fact that Singaporeans will judge me not just as me, Inderjit, but as a Sikh. That there was a Sikh parliament. Did he waste his time? Did he just do things that were not significant? It was a sense of duty for me that I had to project myself as a responsible citizen, not for me, my time is past, but for the future, so that people continue to respect the Sikh community and our future generation, so that our future generation will get the kind of opportunities that I could get. So that was my mindset that I went down there. I wanted to build on the good reputation that the Sikhs already had. I was given an opportunity and a position where I could continue to project this and maybe strengthen the image that I could create for our community. So there were many things that I did other than this. What I did for the Sikh community was, you mentioned, you heard just now, in the area of entrepreneurship promotion. In Parliament, I spent a lot of time focusing on policies that could help entrepreneurs, could help small and medium enterprises, could help improve the whole economic well-being of Singaporeans, so that everyone can have a better life. In 2013, we had a very contentious white paper in Parliament. It was called a population white paper. We were suffering because, that we already had many foreigners in Singapore, but infrastructure was not built. There were no hospital beds, not enough hospital beds, not enough transportation, not enough houses. And the government was pushing a paper that was going to make it worse. So I stood up and I challenged the government and I walked out of Parliament, did not vote for it. If I had stayed, I had to vote for the party because the whip is not lifted, if you know what the parliamentary process is. So I just fought the government and believed me, but I think, I got a scolding from my Prime Minister, but I told him, I said, you'll thank me one day because I did what was right. And that there are MPs in your party who are willing to do what is right. So both Davinder and myself, my colleague who was in Parliament before me, and currently Pritam Singh, who's a opposition party, have also similarly contributed in the manner where today we have strengthened the reputation of the Sikh community, of Sikh leaders, of Sikh professionals in Singapore. And so we saw it as an opportunity for us to continue to build on that, and so that our future generations will benefit. So in conclusion, I want to say that if done correctly, take away all the corruption, take away all the negative things that you see in politics in many parts of the world, politics is a natural contribution for us Sikhs and our value system. Allow us to serve society with the courage, a winning spirit that can help improve the community, and also be seen as a responsible citizen for the whole country, for the society at large. And that is the reason why Lee Kuan Yew chose 2 Sikhs to be in Parliament at the same time when you only needed half. And we have to thank our leaders for giving us that opportunity. And I hope we see Sikh parliamentarian here in Australia. We already have in New Zealand, we have many in Canada. But I think without being actively involved in politics at all levels, whether at the grassroots level, whether at a government, civil service level, or whether in Parliament or as a minister in the future, we may not be able to achieve all the things that we want to achieve for our community. So I encourage our youth to aspire to that levels. And with the charity class spirit, there's no problem that cannot be solved. Perseverance, you'll make it. Thank you for your attention.